Hello everyone, I'm Santiago, and today I'm gonna be testing Conan Exiles 1.0 on the GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. I'll be doing 1080p, 900p and 720p. To skip none of those sections of the video, check the description below. So first of all, I'll show you 1080p on the G4560. I'll be using my 50 to 60 FPS configuration or something like that, which is a mix between medium and low settings with a couple things on high, just to see how the G4560 handles trying to be close to 60 frames per second. Then I just crank up the settings as high as possible, trying to stay over 30 frames per second. And you'll notice at the start of the footage that the GPU usage on the 50 to 60 FPS target can drop below 90% quite often. So we are CPU limited that time around, but when the game is close to ultra settings, it's very GPU bound instead. So you'll see when I switch to the i3-8100 and I use the same 1080p configurations, it will be able to maintain the GPU usage over 90% way more often, which translates on better frame rates on the 50 to 60 FPS target. So yeah, here a better CPU can make a difference if you're targeting higher than 45 FPS. Then I do the same on 900p and 720p. I show you my 60-ish FPS configuration, and then I crank up the settings as much as possible, trying to stay over 30 frames per second, and that'll be pretty much it. So in the options menu, in order to get better performance, I lowered effects and post-processing. That's usually what hits the frame rate the most on Unreal Engine 4 stuff. If you turn effects quality to the minimum, you won't have reflections on water, so the water will look like just a mist or something like that, very weird. Then foliage quality can also be an impact in performance, because on places with a lot of foliage, you can usually get a big FPS hit. So for example, if you're in the desert, you might have like 80 frames per second, but once you get to a place that there's a lot of palm trees, a lot of grass, you can usually drop to almost half the frame rate. Then general shadows was also an impact in performance, but it wasn't as big as I expected compared to the other ones I mentioned. Ambidistance can also be a hit, but it isn't as big of a hit compared to shadows and all that kind of stuff. And on the texture quality option, if you put ultra, it will use more than 4 gigs of VRAM. If you put high, it usually uses around 3 gigabytes. On medium, you can go to 2.1 gigabytes of usage. You can change those options in real time, which I really appreciate. But for some reason, the graphics quality option, which changes all the options, it bugs out when I try to change an option. It stays on medium, but I might be playing on ultra and I don't know, it stays on medium if I change something below. But yeah, to sum up, the places that run the worst are usually foliage heavy places, so a lot of palm trees, a lot of grass, all that kind of stuff, especially when the camera goes through it. And also when you attack an enemy and there's blood flying around, you can get some stutters there. And while running around, it can also happen that you get a random stutter every now and then. Not sure what's going on with that. Even while playing single player, it can happen. On some of my videos, I tested the G4560 and the i3-8100, so a 2-core 4-thread CPU against 4 cores and 4 threads. And I noticed a difference when trying to get 60 frames per second. The 2-core 4-thread CPU was able to maintain 40 to 55 FPS, but on the other hand, the i3-8100 was able to stay over 50 frames per second the big majority of the time. So yeah, a quad-core CPU here should make a difference. I was expecting a higher frame rate with optimization and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they cannot do better than this, who knows? I'm not the developers, but yeah, I just expected better performance than this. Anyway guys, that's pretty much it. I hope you keep enjoying the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
I'll